This is what you should feel. You are what you should feel.
This happened a few months ago, and to this day I cannot shake the feeling of what happened that night. I was hanging out at my house with a friend. We were watching a movie, just chilling like usual. At one point my friend decided to get up and head to the bathroom. Nothing weird, right? But then something really strange happened. As soon as my friend left the room, I heard his voice. But it wasn't coming from the bathroom. It was coming from outside, loud enough for me to hear clearly. At first, I thought maybe he was talking to someone through the window, but I figured that didn't make sense. So I got up and walked toward the window to see what was going on. And that's when I saw his face, right there, smiling at me from the window. It was so clear. I froze for a second, staring at him through the glass. I didn't know how to process what I was seeing because just seconds earlier, he had been walking towards the bathroom. There was no way he could have gotten to the window that quickly. I was freaked out, but I brushed it off as my mind playing tricks on me. After all, I had just seen him leave, right? So I turned away from the window and tried to calm down. When my friend came back from the bathroom, I asked him if he tried to scare me by sneaking around the house. He looked at me confused and said, "No, I've been in the bathroom the whole time." I laughed it off nervously, but inside, something didn't feel right. Later that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had seen his face, but that wasn't him. It couldn't be. I was trying to figure out what had just happened, trying to piece everything together in my mind. That's when I decided to look it up, and after a few hours of research, I found out something that sent chills down my spine. What I had seen that night was a doppelganger.
I'm starting to think my elderly mother isn't losing her mind after all. I'm 58, been a plumber for almost 40 years. My mom is 82 and I've been taking care of her since Dad passed 3 years ago. She's got some health issues, but mentally she's always been sharp as a tack. Until recently I thought maybe that was starting to change. About 6 weeks ago I stopped by her house after work like I do most days. I let myself in with my key and found her in the kitchen looking upset. She asked me why I had left so abruptly earlier and whether she had done something to make me angry. I had no idea what she was talking about. I told her I hadn't been there earlier, that I was coming straight from a job site. She got this hurt look on her face and insisted that I had stopped by around lunchtime. According to her, I had come in through the back door like I always do, sat at the kitchen table, and we talked about my youngest daughter's college plans. The thing is, I was installing a new water heater clear across town during lunch. Had the receipts and everything. But Mom was so convinced it had happened that she started getting agitated when I tried to tell her otherwise. She said I had seemed tired and distracted, and when she offered to make me a sandwich, I had just gotten up and left without saying goodbye. That's not like me at all. Even on my worst days, I don't just walk out on my mother. I figured maybe she had been napping and had a vivid dream or something. At 82, that kind of confusion can happen. I felt terrible thinking about it, but I started wondering if this was the beginning of dementia or Alzheimer's. But for the next month, everything seemed normal. My mom was her usual self, remembered everything clearly. No more strange stories about conversations we never had. I was was actually relieved and started thinking that first incident was just a fluke. Then last Tuesday it happened again, and this time it really shook me up. I had spent the day working a complete bathroom renovation about an hour away. Didn't finish up until almost 7 and was exhausted, covered in tile dust and grout. I stopped by my mom's house to check on her before heading home to clean up. When I walked in, she was sitting in her recliner watching the news. She looked up and gave me this confused expression, like she was seeing double. She asked me why I had come back, and whether I had forgotten something. I told her I hadn't been there earlier, that I was just stopping by after work. She shook her head and said no. I had been there around 3 p.m. We had sat in the living room and I had told her all about the bathroom job I was working on. She said I had even shown her pictures on my phone of the tile work. Here's what made my blood run cold. I had taken pictures of that tile work. It was a custom pattern I was proud of, and I wanted to show a few people. But I'd taken those photos around 4 p.m. after she said this conversation happened. And I definitely hadn't been to her house. Mom insisted that during our supposed conversation, I had seemed different somehow. More formal, she said, like I was being polite to a stranger, instead of talking to my own mother. She said when she offered me coffee, I had said no thank you instead of just declining like I normally would. I tried to stay calm, but inside I was really worried. 2 incidences now, both involving detailed conversations that never happened. I was already mentally preparing to call her doctor about possible cognitive testing. Then she got up and walked over to the little table by her chair where she keeps her important things. She picked up her phone and said she wanted to show me the picture we had taken together earlier. I felt my stomach drop. We definitely hadn't taken any pictures. She pulled up her photo gallery and there it was, a selfie of me and her sitting on her couch. I was wearing the exact same work shirt I had on, even had the same smudge of grout on my collar. But in the photo I looked wrong somehow. My smile was too wide, too forced. My eyes looked flat. But the thing that really got to me was the timestamp. The photo was taken at 3:17 p.m. At 3:17, I was 45 minutes away laying tile in someone else's bathroom. I asked Mom if she remembered taking the picture, and she said of course, I had suggested it. Said I wanted a nice photo of the 2 of us. But she mentioned that when I had held the phone to take the selfie, my hands felt cold even though it was warm in the house. I've been staring at that photo for days now. It's definitely my face, my clothes. Even my work van is visible through the window behind us. But I know for a fact I wasn't there. I've got text messages with my customer, time-stamped photos of my work, even a receipt from the hardware store I stopped at around 3:30. The worst part is that Mom looks happy in the photo. She's smiling like she's enjoying spending time with her son. But whatever was sitting next to her on that couch, it wasn't me. I don't know what to think anymore. Part of me wants to believe Mom is just confused, that there's some reasonable explanation. But that photo exists. It's right there on her phone. Has anyone else ever experienced something like this? I'm scared to leave her alone now, but I don't know how to explain why without sounding crazy myself.
To this day, this story has puzzled me to no end. I should say from the beginning that I was really young, but I remember this incident vividly because of how scared I felt, and my parents have confirmed some aspects of this story. So, some background. Born and raised in Miami, 2 Honduran parents. So, being Hispanic, spiritualism and religion sort of walk hand in hand for some. I grew up in an apartment building with a huge front yard. My mother would let me play outside with our front door open because she could easily keep an eye on me, and the front yard was completely fenced, so I couldn't wander into the street. So on this particular day, I'm playing outside like any other normal day, and I remember that my mum is inside cooking. Like always, our front door is open, and I know for sure that my mum is inside, but that's when I hear it. Someone is calling out to me. I look around and I don't see anyone, so I continue to play. But then, I hear it again. Someone trying to get my attention. I look towards the end of our front yard, and behind the fence I see my mum. She's standing there, waving and smiling at me, trying to get me to go to her. I start laughing and running towards her, because here I am thinking we were playing a game. As I'm closer to this person, something doesn't feel right. Like something is telling me not to trust this person. But I'm torn because I'm looking straight at my mother. It's her voice, her face, even the distinct white streak of hair my mum has that contrasts her jet black hair. But still, something doesn't feel right. I ask her what she's doing on the other side of the fence, and she tells me that we have to go. That I need to follow her, now. She starts to walk towards the fence door, and I begin to follow her, almost entranced. She begins to tell me how much she loves me, and that we need to leave together. As we get closer to the fence door, she starts to tell me that I have to open it and walk out to be with her. I don't know what overcame me, but I said no. This upset my mum, and her demeanor changed. She starts to yell that I had to do it, that we needed to be together now. This scares me, and I began to cry. And then I hear it, my mum's voice, coming from my house, asking where I am. I run towards my house, bawling in hysterics. I see my real mother, and I hug her, and I tell her what happened. I tell her about the lady that looked like her, trying to get me to leave. And I just remember my mum hugging me and telling me that it was just my imagination. Years later, this incident comes up in a conversation I'm having with my parents, and my mum is completely amazed that I remembered all of it so vividly. She also adds that weird things used to happen in that building, and that she suspects that the only reason that thing couldn't get into the property was because of an old Cuban lady that lived next to us. You see, it turns out that she practiced Santeria, and she was constantly blessing the grounds. So honestly, shout out to that lady. Here's where things take a very interesting turn. While me and my mum are reminiscing about what happened, my father is completely silent. And when we finished, he's in shock. He didn't know about this happening to me. And he proceeds to tell us that when he was a child in Honduras, the same thing happened to him. A woman that looked like my grandmother would sometimes go by his house and tell him that they needed to leave to be together. My father is your typical male, everything by the books, no nonsense, very skeptical about all this stuff. But at that moment, I saw fear in him.
I need advice because this is really starting to scare me. So I'm a single mom with 2 kids, Emma, who's 14, and Jake, who's 12. We live in a pretty quiet neighborhood in Ohio. Nothing weird ever happens here. But over the past few weeks, some really strange things have been going on, and I honestly don't know what to think anymore. It started about 3 weeks ago. I work as a medical receptionist and I had to stay late to cover for a coworker who called in sick. I texted my boyfriend Marcus to let him know I'd be home around 7 instead of 5:30 like usual. The kids get off the bus at 3:45, and they're old enough to be alone for a couple of hours. They know the rules about not opening doors and all that. When I got home that night, Emma came running up to me with this confused look on her face. She asked why I had left again when she thought I was making them snacks. I had no idea what she meant. She explained that around 4:30, right after they'd gotten settled with homework, I had come into the kitchen and started making them apple slices with peanut butter. She said I was acting weird and quiet, which she thought was because I was tired after work. But here's the thing. I was at work until almost 7. There's no way I was home making snacks. I figured maybe she was confused about the timeline or something. Kids mix up days all the time, right? But then Jake backed up her story. He said I'd been there, but I smelled different. And when he tried to hug me, I just patted his head instead of giving him a proper hug like I always do. That gave me chills, but I tried to play it off. I asked them both to really think about what day this happened, and they were adamant it was that day, right after school. Emma even showed me the apple slices in the fridge that I had supposedly cut up. They were cut the way I always do them, into thin little wedges, not thick slices like Marcus makes. I didn't know what to think, so I didn't say anything else about it. But I started paying closer attention to things. A few days later, I was grocery shopping after work, and I got this weird phone call on my cell. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. I usually don't answer unknown numbers because they're most likely spam. But something made me feel like I should take this one. When I answered, I heard my own voice. The voice on the other end asked if this was Emma. I told her no, it wasn't. The voice then said it was Emma's mom, then requested to speak with her. It was perfectly calm, perfectly normal. Exactly how I sound when I'm talking to other parents at school or making polite phone calls. But I was standing in a Kroger, holding the phone talking to myself. I told the voice that Emma wasn't available and hung up immediately. My hands were literally shaking. I called the house right away and Emma picked up. She told me someone had just called asking to talk to them, but when she went to get Jake, the person had hung up. I asked if the voice sounded familiar, and she said it sounded like me, but not quite right. That night, I checked the caller ID on our home phone. The call had come from the same one that called my cell. Things stayed quiet for about a week after that. I was starting to convince myself that maybe those calls never really happened. Then last Tuesday, everything got so much worse. I had to drive down to Columbus for a work training that lasted all day. I left at 6 a.m. and didn't get home until almost 9. Marcus was supposed to come over around 8 to help the kids get ready for bed and wait for me to get back. When I walked in the door, Marcus was sitting on the couch looking totally normal, not worried or confused or anything. He asked me how the training went and mentioned that I had seemed pretty tired when he got there. I stared at him. I had just gotten home. We hadn't even talked. He gave me this weird look and insisted we had talked for like 20 minutes when he showed up. According to him, I told him about how the instructor was boring and made everyone do stupid role-playing exercises. I had complained about my feet hurting from my new shoes, then said I had to go take a bath. Here's the thing. The instructor was boring. We did do role-playing exercises, and my feet were absolutely killing me from the new flats I'd bought specifically for the training. But I'd just gotten home, not out of the bathroom. I tried to explain that I'd been in Columbus all day and had literally just walked through the door. He looked at me like I was having some kind of breakdown. He insisted I had been there when he arrived at 8, looking exhausted and saying I was going to take a bath. He'd been watching TV, waiting for me to come back downstairs. I showed him my phone with the GPS tracking showing my drive home from Columbus, ending at our house at 8:47 p.m. He looked at it, looked at me, and I watched his face just drain of color. He whispered that it was impossible. He had talked to me for 20 minutes. I had known about our plans for this weekend. I had reminded him that Jake has a soccer game on Saturday. We do have plans this weekend, and Jake does have a soccer game on Saturday. Those are things I would have said. I ran upstairs to check on the kids. They were both asleep, but when I kissed Emma goodnight, she mumbled something about me wearing different clothes. I asked her what she meant, but she was already falling back asleep. Marcus stayed over that night, but he barely slept. I could hear him tossing and turning, and every time I looked over at him, he was staring at the ceiling. The next morning, he pulled me aside while the kids were getting ready for school. He'd been thinking about it all night. When he was talking to whoever that was, they knew everything. They knew about my mom's birthday next week. They knew about the issues we've been having with Jake's teacher. They even mentioned that thing about wanting to repaint the bathroom that we talked about last weekend. Those are all things only I would know. Private conversations between me and Marcus. Concerns about my kids that I haven't shared with anyone else. But Marcus said there was something off. They answered everything correctly, but it felt rehearsed, like someone reading from a script of my life. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to set up cameras in the house, but I'm terrified of what I might see. Another part of me thinks we should just move. But how do you move from something that looks exactly like you? The kids haven't mentioned seeing me when I'm not home since that first incident, but they've both been acting clingy lately. Jake keeps asking me to promise I'm really me when I pick him up from school. And Emma has started doing this thing where she asks me questions that only the real me would know. Marcus says he believes me, but I can tell he's scared. He keeps looking at me like he's trying to figure out if I'm really me or if I'm the other one. I'm scared too. What if one day I come home and it's already here? What if my kids can't tell the difference? What if Marcus can't tell the difference? What if I'm the copy and I just don't know it?
This story happened at one of my more recent job places. Sit tight. This one still gives me the chills. I worked at a boarding facility for dogs and cats. From day one, stuff was off. The first thing I noticed weird was hearing a voice right behind me, and when I turned around, seeing no one there. Understandable enough with 20 to 70 dogs barking all around me for their lunch or playtime potty breaks. I kept disregarding these things until one day, on top of a low kennel, a partially filled water container, like the ones used to water plants with, flew at me. We also used them to fill water bowls. No way a dog could have hit it and sent it somehow flying horizontally at me. It missed me by an inch or so. I felt the breeze of it flying past me as I walked by, and it hit the kennel across from where it was located, hard. I knew something was up then, but still hadn't paid it much mind. Shortly after, I noticed the metal doggy doors that led from each kennel into an outside run would start swinging when I entered the kennel to clean, or for anything really. I would look at the doggy doors on both other sides. No motion from them. If I stepped out of the kennel, the door would stop swinging. Well, nothing new for me to experience weird shit. So what is one more story to add to the list, right? One day, a co-worker got mad at me and called me. She said she saw me through the window and asked why I didn't go back and talk with her for a bit. I answered with the fact that I wasn't, nor had I been, anywhere near work that day. She thought I was kidding, went to the front desk to ask, and was told that no one, in fact, had been through at all for the past couple of hours. This happened 3 times with different co-workers, where they would see me from another room or yard and ask why I never stopped to talk on days I wasn't at work. This eventually progressed. I was moved up to being the bather for our location, so a lot of dog baths and loud dryers going for the pups. And I kept seeing, every time I was bathing a dog, my manager and then friend, and also the person whose voice I heard the most when no one was near me, standing by my side. She would stand there, waiting for me to turn around and turn off the dryers so I could hear her. And once I did, and turned towards her, no one was there. She would be busy with clients or not even in the building. At this point, some of us girls had already been discussing the weird shit going on. One friend and I said roughly at the same time, "Oh, the mimic? Oh, the imitator?" We looked at each other and smiled nervously. We had never talked in depth about this stuff, because, come on, how many people would even take us seriously? It turns out 2 other girls had heard or seen me or my manager more than once when we weren't there. Or it wasn't us. 2 more things stuck in my memory about this place. 1, we had a storm which led to power flickering on and off. From reception to the back kennel area, where most of the activity seemed to happen, it was visible through a large window so clients could see where their fur babies would be kept. As the lights flickered, 3 of us stood in reception, past our shift in case we had an emergency. 2 of us were facing that window. Both of us, at the same time, saw a fast, non-identifiable shadow thing rush past the window, even higher than the top of the kennel doors, which, by the way, are 6 feet tall. We saw this twice during the light flickers. The second thing that stuck was we had radios. We often just forgot to use them or even turn them on. One of my co-workers was outside with the daycare dogs who just play for the day, when her radio clicked. A voice she did not recognize said, "Spot's mum is here for pickup," and cut out. She went to answer, only to realize her radio wasn't on. She got that dog ready and took him to the front, where the receptionist said she didn't call for him. She didn't have any radios on either. We still don't know what it is or was we experienced, but we do know it was out of the ordinary. What I'm about to say right now, you may think I might seem foolish to you after reading it, or you might even laugh at me. That's totally up to you, and even I don't know whether it was my imagination or something real. When this incident happened to me, I felt a strange kind of fear inside. This incident happened when I was in class 2 in school, and our morning prayer used to take place on the school field. That day, just like every other day, I was doing the prayer, but I had my eyes slightly open, and I was secretly looking at the other students and the teachers. While I was doing that, suddenly my eyes went towards the fencing net in front of the school where there was a tree, and I saw someone standing there. Someone who looked exactly like me. I mean, a boy with my exact face was standing there and looking straight at me. At first I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, so I quickly shut them, but when I opened them again, that boy was still standing there, staring at me. That's when I began to feel a strange kind of fear from inside, thinking I'm standing here, But how can someone who looks exactly like me be on the other side of the fence? It felt like a duplicate version of me was there. At that moment, I felt like crying. So many thoughts ran through my mind. What's happening to me? What's going to happen next? And I closed my eyes again, out of fear. And then the prayer ended. And when I opened my eyes, there was no one there anymore. After that day, I never saw him again. Now, I don't know what it was, who it was, or whether it was just my imagination. I leave it up to you to decide. Hello, watchers and listeners. Thank you all so much for listening. If you have a story you'd like to share with the channel, please send it to my email. It's found in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel memberships are now available with custom badges and emojis. Only one tier at the moment, but more will be added soon with more perks. So feel free to check that out if that sounds interesting to you. And as always, the biggest thank you to all of you. I truly appreciate all of your support throughout the years. And remember,
Papa loves you.